Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Linda. I'm Linda. You know I love a good conversation, so let's have one. A movement and ministerial leader at the forefront of social justice and Black liberation efforts in Memphis, Tennessee, and beyond, Reverend Dr. Earle J. Fisher was born in Benton Harbor, Michigan. He sojourned to Memphis, Tennessee in the fall of 1999 on a full-ride athletic scholarship to play basketball at Lemoyne-Owen College. In 2018, Reverend Fisher earned a doctorate of philosophy in communication from the University of Memphis and currently serves as senior pastor of Abyssinian Baptist Church, also known as the Blackest Church in Memphis and Shelby County. As a community organizer, Reverend Earle co-organized the Memphis Grassroots Organization Coalition in August of 2015. Spearheading initiatives in criminal justice reform, media accountability, the removal of Confederate monuments, and voter empowerment, Dr. Fisher formed Up the Vote 901. In November of 2017, to give more political power to more people and increase voter turnout in Memphis and Shelby County. He is a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, husband of Lady Denise, father of one son, Jalen, believer in one God, and friend and mentor to many. Conversations with Linda. Welcome Dr. Earle Fisher to our show. Welcome, Dr. Fisher.
Reverend Linda.
Listen.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm grateful.
I'm nervous.
Stop it.
I am. I was like, am I prepared for this conversation?
I don't know what you... Child, please. Salute to you. Salute to my dear brother, Bishop Kevin Willis.
Thank you so
to the
much.
New Life family. I thank God for what y'all mean to the city.
Bless you.
What y'all mean to the body of believers.
Praise the Lord.
I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you.
The check is in the mail.
Listen, I say I'm nervous because you have raised such a social conscience in not just our community, but I think you have become a voice in this country. And I was wanting to make sure I was adequately prepared to have a conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask questions and let you give answers. All right. So this is more of an interview rather than just a conversation.
Conversations with Linda. And you got some insight. I will say again, thanks for that compliment. And what I believe I have learned and observed in my time trying to merge, my anointing with activism and the academy is that ain't really no experts in this. It's people who are trying to do the best they can with what they have and what they know to try to help God's people in a way that is pleasing to God and authentic to who we are. So this is a conversation with all due respect.
Okay.
Reverend.
Well, I still have questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Hearing you say your anointing and activism, it leads me really to my first question and what I've been most inquisitive about concerning you. What led you down this path of social justice and these issues that you have championed? Where did that passion come from?
That's a good question. I mean, I get asked it a lot. If somebody probably ran over the scope of interviews that I've done, they probably would find a different answer every time somebody asked it. But what I think is probably most consistent is a couple things. One, I'm from Benton Harbor, Michigan.
Okay.
It's a majority Black city, deeply impoverished. It's on the southwest corner of Michigan, 90 miles east of Chicago.
Okay.
It's a twin city to a predominantly white and affluent community, St. Joseph, Michigan. And so growing up in that context, it reminds me of something that Malcolm X said. He said, everything south of Canada is deep south.
Wow.
Or what I say is everything south of Canada is Mississippi.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
So when you grow up in that environment, if you've been Black in America for 15 minutes, you got post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Isn't that something?
And when you come into the knowledge of how these things have developed, then if you have any compassion and conviction,
Yeah.
it's something that you want to say and do to try to change the conditions.
Absolutely.
So growing up in church, especially because my mother, Minister Claudia Fisher, is for me the quintessential Christian ethicist, even though she ain't never been in nobody's seminary.
Wow.
Right. So she instills these spiritual principles in us. Mm-hmm. She roots us in the faith, and I try to stay true to that.
Okay.
And so as I come to Memphis, when I get to Lemoyne-on, when I get introduced to, Dr. Frank Anthony Thomas at Mississippi Boulevard Christian Church, people like Reverend Dr. Valerie Bridgman,
absolutely,
who we know, they instill in me a particular type of theological insight and consciousness. And I learned in seminary about Black liberation theology, and I think that kind of set me on the course that I'm on now, because I was able to connect some dots between my compassion and my conviction and my creativity and where I'm from and what I feel like God is calling me to do. And so right now, I don't see any distinction between social justice ministry and, the call to preach or the call to pastor. Like for me, that's the essence of the Christian faith. It's matter of fact, I think it's Dr. Aubrey Hendricks who talks about in his newer book, Christians Against Christianity, that the term in Hebrew that's translated for justice is the most dominant term in the Bible. So, to talk about religion in a way that is disconnected from justice or liberation, for me, is just inconsistent with the essence of the gospel. So by the time all of those things kind of synthesized, light bulbs went off for me, and I think I saw my what did the elders say in the song? When I can read my title clear.
I gotcha.
So I think I read my title a little more clear now.
Wow. And so our viewers are called chit chatters. Yeah. So chit chatters, I want you to just kind of take note of that, because you said a lot, but something that you said that resonated with me, when your compassion, your convictions, creativity, just all came into alignment. Yeah. And manifested itself in who you are, with all of those deposits that have been made in you. That's amazing, and I want to remind you of that, because many of you are wondering, what's my purpose? What, how do I achieve my purpose? I think you just gave us that formula of compassion, conviction, and creativity, and however that looks on you.
There's one more thing, because I remember preaching about this at Activism a couple years ago, and it kind of sort of came up in some spiritual discipline stuff that I was preaching about. And the thing that I would add to that is character. Yeah. So it's creativity, it's compassion, it's conviction, but it's also character. One of the things that I feel like has helped anchor me in the work that I'm doing is that I'm not perfect, right? But I am committed to a level of ethical integrity. Yeah. And when I was talking about that at Abyssinian, I talked about it through the context of Jesus going through the wilderness. In Luke chapter 4, he doesn't preach that inaugural sermon until after absolutely he's been through the wilderness. Absolutely. And I said it's the wilderness that helps merge together your creativity, your compassion, your conviction, and your character.
Because in the wilderness, you're dealing with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And the angels got to come minister to you.
Absolutely.
Y'all chit-chatters hear that? You better thank God for some angels that come minister to you.
That's awesome. So to go a little further, in August 2015, you co-organized the Memphis Grassroots Organization Coalition in response to the brutal death of Darius Stewart by a Memphis police officer. So let's talk about that a moment. What led you to feel like this coalition was needed and should be co-organized by you?
One thing I would say for starters is, even though that's 7 years ago, it feels like so long ago now. Yeah. Because when you say that, and then you kind of put together the math, it's like, that hadn't even really been that long. I'm 43 now, so I mean, I was like 36. Actually, what happened, that thing evolved into that coalition. It's not like something that I or the other co-founder, now Commissioner Tammy Sawyer, had dreamed of. Tammy and I at the time probably only knew each other maybe a month.
Really?
Yeah, people think we've been, friends for eons, but no. Sister Girl and I met at a vigil that she organized after Darius was killed. and her and I began to talk about ways to try to advance these advocacy efforts in criminal justice reform and trying to get justice for Darius.
Okay.
And so we crafted a letter, and I was like, you send this out to folks in your network, I'll send it out to folks in my network, and we'll see who signs on. And when I tell you in a matter of like 24 hours, there were, 100 plus signatures. And so we started thinking, well, maybe we need to try to pull the people who signed on to this together to see what we could develop. That's actually the foundation of the Memphis Grassroots Organizations Coalition, because what we found was there were so many people who were connected to organizations and institutions and people who were doing advocacy work, but there really wasn't, other than at the time, I think there was the Mid-South Peace and Justice Center that had a similar angle and had been doing similar work, but there was not anything, as far as we could tell, that was situated in that moment to pull everybody together and organize these efforts under a particular umbrella. That's why we called it the coalition, because there were so many wonderful people and so many wonderful institutions and organizations, and we just tried to help organize it in a way that we can advance some of the advocacy initiatives.
Awesome. And I think that even speaks to character, because people are drawn to people and not just causes. Because there are a lot of causes out there. But I think when we hear certain voices say something needs to be done or something can be done, I think you have that draw. I really do. That when Dr. Earle Fisher says it, at least our ears perk up and say, okay, hey, what's going on? Because we see a lot of things on the news and a lot of things have been happening. So I'm appreciative of your voice.
Thank you.
Especially in the Memphis area, in the busyness of all the things that are going on and all of the things that we see, you kind of keep us conscious, if you will. And I said to you, or if I didn't say it to you, I said to somebody else, I maybe said on social media, you got to keep us woke. Because we don't all the time, we are not always woke. And that leads me to my question: are we still awake? Because you said it was a long time ago. 7 years have passed. Are we as conscious as we were a few years ago when the Black Lives Matter movement was, heightened and all over the news? And did we go back to sleep?
Well, Reverend Linda, I know we only got a few more minutes left in this segment. I don't know how well I can answer that.
Okay.
Let me say it this way. Number one, collectively, as a community, I don't think there's ever been a time where the vast majority of us have been woke or conscious or engaged and evolved. And my study of social movements over history has led me to understand that they ebb and flow. There are times where the community's sensibilities are heightened around a certain issue. And then there are times where it seems like, everybody is lulled back to sleep. Because the only way for the people in power to maintain their power is to keep the masses unconscious, if you will, or unaware. So in this exact moment, I would say we're definitely not where we were at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. So we're not where we were when Trayvon was killed. We're not, most people don't know this in terms of like the movement trajectory. People need to go back and look up the Gina 6, Jena, the Gina 6 out of Louisiana. There's a group of young Black men who were being railroaded about a schoolyard fight that they had with some white boys, and then they ultimately were being tried for murder, attempted murder. But Gina 6, we're not there. Trayvon, we're not there. We're not where we were when Mike Brown died or was killed. We're not where we were when Sandra Bland or Eric Gardner. We're not where we were when George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and I was about to say Renisha McBride. And it's a shame because so many of them have happened.
I was thinking that as you were calling their names, and we speak their names today. We are not. And so I want to ask our chit-chatters before we go to commercial break, do you feel that you're still as engaged? Are you still conscious with what's going on in our country? Where all of us were talking about Black Lives Matter with all of those deaths, those injustices that took place. But is that your conversation now? Is that what you're talking about around the dinner table when you're going out with friends? I want for you to just kind of chime in on the feed and let me know where you are in your own heart. We're going to take a commercial break and we'll be right back.
I'm Victoria Brown with Force Success Realty. I am an affiliated broker here in the city and surrounding areas. If you're looking for that perfect home, I am the key to your new home. Thinking about selling? Give me a call at 901-864-3990. If you're on the fence and don't know if you're able to buy, it's a perfect time to give me a call. I will help you out. I will connect you with those individuals that can help you get into a new home. I'm standing by. And again, my number is 901-864-3990. You can also reach me on the World Wide Web at www.victoriabrownrealestate.com. Look forward to speaking to you soon.
Welcome back to Conversations with Linda. Listen, I am having a very passionate, informative conversation with the Reverend Dr. Earle Fisher. Just in case you're outside of Memphis, he is the pastor of Activism Church here in the Memphis area, but he's also an activist, and he's already told us in the first segment that, activism and anointing, they need to go together. We can't have social justice outside of the message of Jesus Christ. And so I just want to continue this conversation. I got plenty of questions.
So it is a conversation.
Yeah, okay. As you notice, I was really quiet. It's a conversation, but you're doing most of the talking. You're doing the talking.
This is a dialogue system.
So tell us, what's the major difference between the civil rights movement and Black Lives Matter?
I think I can answer that relatively concisely.
Okay.
So two things. One, during the civil rights movement, the loud clarion call and cry was about equality.
Okay.
The call and the clarion cry in the current Black freedom movement that we refer to as the Black Lives Matter movement is about equity. So equality is when everybody gets the same thing. Equity is when everybody gets what they need.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Okay.
The second thing.
Wait a minute, we got to digest that because I think that's important.
Sure.
So equality is when everybody gets the same thing.
Right.
But when we're talking about equity, it's everybody getting what they need. So meaning that if I stay just at equality, I may get what everybody else got, but I don't get what I need.
Yeah, and if you are inserted into an inequitable system. And for my chit-chatters and theologians out there, inequity is the Old Testament term that we refer to as sin.
Okay.
You workers of inequity.
Gotcha.
Okay. So if you are thrust into an inequitable environment, that means certain people have stuff already. Or the way that the late Reverend Dr. Joseph Lowry would say, some people have more than they'll ever need. While most people have less than they always need.
Wow.
So if that's the case, if you start there and everybody starts getting equal stuff, you never change the inequity.
Gotcha. So is that where white privilege comes in?
Absolutely, that's part of it. So people who know something about white privilege would know that you are in a system and a structure of white supremacy, where people who are in white skin get certain benefits
that they really don't even realize or know that other people aren't getting what they're getting, which is why
there are some. Reverend, I need to say there are some who don't. There are some who know full well and don't care.
Because they
appreciate the privilege.
Right. I was going to go to the don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I was thinking about that as we've had conversation about even in school. I'm finishing up my program at Memphis Theological Seminary. Praise God, thank you, Jesus.
Hallelujah.
But anyway, in class, we got into this major discussion that really offended one of our classmates because they had difficulty owning that white privilege piece. of course they were white,
Sure.
and was offended that not necessarily that it existed, but that they could be blamed, that they were the recipients of the privilege.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just the system. I didn't make it up. It's just the system.
Yeah, but you're also not working to dismantle it or disrupt it
There
either.
you go.
So you are complicit in it. And that's not
go.
much different than walking in a room seeing somebody being abused. You didn't cause the abuse.
Absolutely.
But now you're witnessing it.
Uh-huh.
And so you have a responsibility to
You're the
intervene,
bystander.
or else you're complicit in to some degree, even in our legal system, to some degree. If you don't act, then you are also held to a degree of accountability and responsibility. So it's the inequity part and the equity part. That's the difference. The other is the inclusivity. Insofar as the public front lines personas of the civil rights movement were generally, now, those of us who, study civil rights know much more about people who have not been thrust into the forefront in the mainstream. But in this current iteration of the Black Freedom Movement, the movement for Black Lives, there's a lot more inclusion of women, Black women especially, and the LGBTQIA community. So those are two primary differences that I see from the Black Freedom Movement in the Civil Rights era and the Black Freedom Movement in the Movement for Black Lives era.
Okay, so do you think that was what caused so many people? I mean, because it galvanized, and it was that inclusivity. Do you think that was the case, or did?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Some of it is just the spirit and the time, the serendipity of it all, the Kairos moment, as we would call it.
Absolutely.
And some of it is the technologies.
Okay. Social media.
Absolutely.
Being what it is.
Yeah, and the internet.
To reach more people.
Right, and reach more people quicker, much more quickly. Yeah. I think that has had a lot to do with it too.
Okay. See, I'm asking all the right questions. I know y'all wanted to know all of this. These are questions I've been waiting to ask Dr. Fisher, and y'all know he is prolific, profound. He's all of those pros, and he's just being kind in giving us these succinct answers.
I'm trying to stay with the chit-chatters. I'm trying to stay within the time constraints because she's asking all these deep questions, and I don't want to sound stupid trying to answer them too succinctly.
Not. And by the way, let me just give a shout out when you talked about some of those people that made an impact on your life. Dr. Valerie Bridgman Davis, certainly, or Dr. Valerie Bridgman now, but certainly has made a profound impact on my life. She is my girl for real. So next question is, oftentimes when we reflect on the civil rights movement, we only focus on Dr. King and the SCLC. As you just mentioned, there were other groups, and in those groups there was a difference in what they thought the approach should be. It wasn't a monolithic movement. Right. So what we're seeing today, and I've had personal, private conversations about this, is this emergence of different groups. Especially amongst clergy, who say they're committed to the same thing. But to be honest with you, it looks like there's so much division. Help me and our audience to understand, why can't the pastors get on one page?
Well, I think it's an unrealistic expectation if you start talking about, in Memphis, 4,000 churches. Okay. You got families with 3 people that ain't on the same page all the time.
That's true.
And not to mention the way that people have approached these things theologically. If you go back to your opening question, most people don't fundamentally center social justice or Black liberation within the theological framework.
Okay, that's true.
So that's one thing. Another thing is, you have pastors who have a particular ego and appetite.
Okay, I was waiting for you to get that. I thought I was going to have to just bring that to the table. So you own it.
I'm clear. And the sad thing about it, because all of us have a sense of self.
Absolutely.
And all of us want a particular type of inclusion and affirmation.
Right.
The danger is you have people who are clergy who are accustomed to being out front, even in situations and circumstances that they are ill-equipped to lead.
Okay, all right.
They are ignorant of many of these issues.
Right.
But they like to be in the room. They like to be at the table, even when they're on the menu, because they don't know the smell of barbecued Negro. Okay? So they filleting Negroes in the back.
This is the real Dr. Earle Fisher. Just in
you
case
giving me a chance to talk now. I'm almost preach like I'm at Abyssinia now. Look, I mean, they're filleting Negroes in the back via public policy. And then the same people who are filleting Negroes in the back call a couple of preachers. The preachers are so excited
that they're
to be included because they think proximity to political power equals influence, when really it equals exploitation.
Y'all write that down now. Write that down.
So that's part of where the division comes from, because if you have the consciousness and the conviction, then you can see relatively clearly where the issues are, where the problems are, and you don't have the luxury of staying silent, because then you can't sleep.
So we engage in our own sense of privilege too.
Yeah, there's pastoral privilege for sure.
Yeah.
Because people automatically assume if you're a pastor that you have certain gifts and skills, and they automatically assume that you have certain convictions, which may not necessarily be the case.
Absolutely.
There's a reason why Dr. King wrote a letter from the Birmingham jail.
Okay.
And as my dear brother, not Reverend, but I'm going to call him a Reverend, Dr. Charles McKinney at Rhodes College, he said, notice it was not the letter from the Birmingham Country Club. And it wasn't the letter from the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
It was directed at preachers who were chastising Dr. King and the civil rights movement for, tell me if this sounds familiar, chit-chatters, being too militant, being too aggressive, being too radical, and not incrementally waiting for them to ease you into these reforms that we've been waiting over several hundred years for. And so that's part of it. And so I want to be clear that some of what we call division ain't necessarily division. It's just difference of opinion. But there are undoubtedly there are some preachers in the city.
Okay.
We don't worship the same. I don't worship the same God as them. I'm clear, right? And we ain't on the same team. They can lie to me all they want to.
Okay.
Talking about we on the same team, Doc Nick. No, we ain't. No. And in a sense, that's okay if you can own it.
If you can own it.
Yeah. Right. See, I don't remember the prophets of Baal trying to convince Elijah that they were on the same team.
Yeah.
No. And so if we ever need to have a showdown at the mountain and see who can call down fire, I'm open to it. Y'all give me the address.
Oh, you heard it right here. This is the Dr. Earle Fisher. I was waiting to come to the camera. I remember before the Black Lives Movement, and I'm 54, and so sometimes I have
Black don't crack. Put that in the chit chat.
Look, but I remember before Black Lives Matter, it was I can't remember the big thing, and we were meeting at churches, and I was like, okay, what just happened? We went to this big meeting because we were going to do something, protest, and we were coming together as a group of people, as Blacks, as Christians, as all of that. And it was horrible. I'm just being honest. Yeah. It was horrible to see that we didn't really get a chance to deal with the issues on the plate. And I don't want to call any names of where we were and all that, but it was horrible that we didn't get a chance to deal with the issues because there was so much contention but amongst the pastors. And
but pastors are people. Pastors are human. Pastors have some of the same proclivities, aspirations.
You're right.
And I think it's important, Reverend Linda, to say there have been pastors throughout the ages in Memphis and beyond that have stepped up to the plate, led some wonderful movements.
Absolutely.
I would have to say Reverend Nettis.
Oh, yeah.
Lucemba Gray.
Absolutely.
I don't want to call too many names, but Samuel Billy Cowles. Gina Stewart.
Absolutely. All of them.
So there are people who have done it, and I think sometimes pastors run into the roadblock of unrealistic expectations.
Okay.
But that does not diminish this dysfunctional notion of always having to be out front and in the lead, even when you are ill-equipped to do. That's the thing.
And I can appreciate that because I think, when Paul talks about the different gifts, I think we just don't remember that even as
or we don't
clergy.
care about it, Reverend Linda.
Well, okay.
I had this conversation with
I'm trying to be nice.
No, well, I want to be honest.
Okay.
Look, and if that comes off as not, I want to say, I don't know if I heard somebody say this, I started saying it myself. If I tell you the truth and it hurts your feelings, what are we supposed to change? The truth of your feelings.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So
see, I've been in trouble a little bit because I'm not always nice. So I'm trying to be.
Well, y'all blame it on me this time.
Okay, y'all blame it on him.
I'm used to it. So I was talking to a local pastor. I got a great relationship with Reverend Dr. J. Lawrence Turner.
Yeah. And can I say he's doing a phenomenal job?
Yes, with the Black Clergy Collaborative of Memphis and the African American Clergy Collective of Tennessee. We had an event.
And I've been.
I'm on the steering committee of both of those.
And I've been to some of those meetings. We were doing them by Zoom. And what I love about Dr. Turner, I just got to put this plug in because I know I was talking about a meeting years ago that I was in that was horrible. But I got to say that he's doing a phenomenal job, and he keeps the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, and look,
I can appreciate.
He is a conscious brother who is diplomatic, who is polished, who is honest, who is responsible. I appreciate that. That's why I'm, honored to work with him in this capacity. My point was, when I was talking to him, the conversation that we was having was stemming from like some of the same frustrations. Like we've even met with some other local pastors trying to get some perspective on, some of this stuff. And the bottom line is, when you have people who are not willing to follow and always feel like they have to be the protagonist in every story, the main character in every story, but may not be equipped for it. Like that's the dangerous part. Yeah. And that's how it's easy for people who are in the political privileged positions to just scan through the crowd, pick out one or two, and then pit that one or two or 10 or 20 against the rest of the clergy. But again, I want to give preachers space enough to be human and have disagreements and misunderstandings and frustrations and anxieties and insecurities and all that other stuff like other human beings.
Which we all have. I just want us to always keep the main thing the main thing.
Yes.
Can we just...
Yes. Well, the main thing for some of them, Reverend Linda, is them. They are the main thing.
Okay. All right.
The main thing for them is that they be out front, that they had a spotlight, that they get the credit, that they get the little cheap grant, that they get the little... that they get a chance to preach at the prayer breakfast.
Okay.
Look, now.
You're right.
I almost feel like, see, it's early in the morning. I ain't had enough coffee. She shouldn't have invited me if she don't want to talk. I'm chit-chatting with y'all, okay?
They're going to see this on a Sunday evening at 7 p.m. And I'll be having my coffee while I'm watching. But, I like the fact that you are a man of truth. I really do. I can appreciate that because, and this is not what this show is about, but however, I came into all of this marrying my husband, Bishop, he's Kevin to me, 35 years ago. And I was somewhat of a rebel. And I remember struggling with watching the inconsistencies that I saw, because Kevin was already preaching. And then he began pastoring, and I struggled as a young Christian woman with the inconsistencies that nobody was speaking to. And so I have an appreciation, and when I did try to speak, and I was made sure to know, not by my husband, he's always been supportive, but by the powers that be, young lady, you don't bring those matters up. They had those things handled. So I do appreciate the honesty, the truth that you give, and I'm hoping that as we hear truth, because the danger of it is, as we hear truth, that we do the right things with it, that we, one, embrace it as the truth, but two, do what we can to bring about change. Yes. And so, that's what I see you doing as an activist.
So first, thank you. First, let me say, I'm not claiming that everything I say is the truth. Let's discuss it on the merits, and let's search for the truth together. Okay. Now, I haven't really been in spaces where people wanted to challenge the merits. Okay. They might say something like, he's too aggressive or he's too whatever, but they hardly ever say he lying.
Okay, right.
Or at least I hadn't heard it. And I'm willing to have that conversation. Sure. That's number one. Number two, let's be honest about the fact that a lot of what we have been talking about are the solutions that many of our colleagues have paraded out front for the last several, however long, have not yielded the
Yeah.
fruit of the labor.
That's true.
I mean, so somebody has to take ownership for, and I hope people would play this back in years to come if God allows us to see more years in ministry and in movement work. You know, play it back and say, well, you said this, and you didn't, and I want to be a model of somebody who owns it.
Okay.
But right now, I think what we see are people in positions of pastoral and political leadership and privilege passing the buck of responsibility, but still wanting access to the privilege. So it's like they want all of the rewards without any of the risk. It's like they want, I guess you would call it a crossless crown.
Oh, wow.
And a deathless resurrection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like everybody want to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to have to die to get
there.
there.
Well, now, you know, that's true. A crossless crown. Wow.
Yeah.
And a deathless resurrection.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be using that.
Yeah, be my guest.
Okay, let's turn a corner. Speaking of Dr. King, in 2020, you had an interview with rollingout.com, and you called Martin Luther King Day a sham. Can you elaborate on that some more?
Sure. One, I think for contextual clarity's sake, rollingout.com, they took snippets of an article I wrote for the Tri-State Defender.
Okay.
And I actually talked about this MLK Day this year at Monumental Baptist Church when I gave some remarks. So the essence of it is not that it's the whole spirit of Dr. King Day as a day of service type thing. So that's the way that you erase the radical and revolutionary nature of Dr. King and what he died for.
Okay.
And say the way you honor King is not by implementing the policies that he would have advocated for, not by, let's say, ensuring that sanitation workers have livable wages.
Wow.
Or ensuring that you close the economic wealth gap. All of these things that King talked about when he was killed. No, what you do to honor Dr. King is pick up some trash on the street and clean up your neighborhood.
We've been hoodwinked again.
I mean, it's low hanging fruit because if we
you know, I'm serious. In this moment, I'm thinking about what you're saying, and it's my little aha moment. Because I was one of those on Martin Luther King Day doing acts of service, you know.
And think of it, Reverend Linda.
I mean, for my personal, this wasn't, I didn't lead my church in doing it. I did my own. But I've been hoodwinked again.
Look, and there's nothing wrong with charitable acts.
Right, I get what you're saying.
Charitable acts are being used as a substitute.
For
justice-oriented policies.
I get it. As a substitute.
Look, Negroes work all day, every day.
Right.
And not a day we get off in honor of the man who y'all railroaded and executed, okay? Killed, assassinated. Jay-Z said, I arrived on the day Fred Hampton got murdered. Assassinated, just to clarify it first, right? So Dr. King was assassinated. And Dr. King Day doesn't even become a national holiday until the 80s. Now, he died in 68.
Right.
Okay? And so now you take this day that the political establishment uses to de-radicalize King. They'll play the close of the Broken Promises speech. It's not the I Have a Dream speech, okay?
Oh.
That's just the close, but you know how black folks is. We just love the close of the sermon, so we think that's the whole sermon. And it's not, okay? The Broken Promises speech. Yeah. They just play the closing part of it because they didn't want to play the front part of it when he was condemning and critiquing the federal government for giving black folks a bad check that was marked insufficient funds. Wow. You don't hear it now, and I would love to see some of our elected officials, especially our white elected officials who love to show up in black churches during campaign season. Why don't y'all quote that Dr. King?
Oh my goodness. So should we, because I'm telling you, you have given me this moment of, wow, hadn't looked at it like that.
Well, what I said.
So should we continue? What should I do next year?
What I say in the article is this. I say we should use that day to advocate for policies and practices that Dr. King advocated for when he died. Now, look, if white folks want to do service, be my guest. Black folks give enough service already, okay?
Wow.
Give us the reparations that y'all owe us, okay? You want to honor Dr. King? He was talking about reparations, okay? Y'all chit-chatting?
Okay.
Let me look at the chat.
I'm just taking it all in because I'm thinking, man, I didn't think of it like that. That's why we need your voice. Because you uncover, you take, that nice wrapping paper off, and and show us what's really underneath.
Well, but I think I'm part
I mean,
of...
I'm not that deep. Come on.
Well, I don't agree with that. You are. And I think all of us have moments where our consciousness is elevated.
Yeah.
And accented. And I also want to say, I know I'm not the only one engaged in this level of analysis.
Yeah.
And critique, if you will. I mean, there are people all over the country. There are people not a lot of people in Memphis, but there are people in Memphis, and I just won't call any names because I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah,
but again, I think you and others, all of us had a capacity to do this if you have courage, if you have compassion, if you have conviction, creativity, and character. All of us had a capacity to do this.
And I think, let me just say this. Y'all know I got to just throw my part in here. I think for me, it's because I believe also, I agree with you that this activism should be a part of our anointing. That's what we should be doing with our anointing. I think for me personally, I'm thinking in my mind, in my perspective, I am doing it. I'm doing it in my corner,
yes,
through the issues that are going on with my membership, but the broader context,
there you go,
is what I still fall short in, and rely on your voice and others like Dr. Turner and all those to bring me up to the level that I'm supposed to be on. Yeah. And if I'm not careful, I'll get consumed with, as you say, low-hanging fruit, which are the things that are right here for my membership, the people in my community.
And look, it's a load to handle that immediate congregational network.
Yeah.
I mean that's a heavy load. Part of the reason why it's a heavy load is because our congregation, our members, are part of this broader system.
Right.
That is so inequitable.
Right.
That the people who will come to our churches have a particular set of needs that require a whole lot of time and resources.
Okay.
Right? And oftentimes we are under-resourced, trying to meet the needs of under-resourced people.
Right.
And so it's not hard to get caught up in that. But that is part of the broader system. I think as long as we focus on the collective and larger picture, that is not just, and that's why. So earlier you said something about the Pauline reference to the different body parts in the faith tradition, and what Dr. Turner and I were talking about was like, people say that, but they don't really believe it. They think if it calls for a hand, they the hand this time. If it calls for a leg, they the leg.
Right.
If it calls for the head, they the head.
Right? They morph into whatever.
Contort themselves into some ways. I've seen people twist themselves like a pretzel to try to do stuff and be stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That's not your thing. So the broader point in this instance is we have to ensure that the work that we are doing in our immediate congregational network is connected to a broader movement, a broader freedom movement, a broader Black prophetic tradition. That's why I can say I'm not doing this as like some isolated voice. Like I ain't ignorant. I know that there are thousands of prophets who have not bowed to Baal. Right now, sometimes it feels lonely and it gets lonely. Sure, I mean, that's just the nature of the journey. But we have to be intentional in the chit chat. All the chit chatters, type that in the comment section. Intentional. Right, because people think that you could do this accidentally. No, it has to be intentional.
Right.
You have to intentionally connect the work that you are doing in your individual congregational context to the broader scope of what's happening in the community.
That is so true. You refer to your church as the Blackest church in Memphis. Come on, unpack that for us.
So here's the first thing I say in response to that. I dare somebody challenge us for the title. We will lovingly have a competition. Nobody ever tried. Now, think about something.
Okay.
All of these Black churches. Nobody has ever said, no, well, I'm sorry, one person, Reverend Kevin Andre Brooks, pastors the AME Church. He said something about this. He probably tongue-in-cheek, and I believe he meant it, but we just never really followed up on it. But that's one thing. Nobody really challenges us for the title. It's almost like they want to be a Black church, but not Black. So that title came from two Black women. Neither of them are technical members of Abyssinian, but both of them was at Abyssinian. One, Reverend Dr. Karen Todd, who is now the executive director of the Black Church Studies program at Memphis Theological Seminary. She came to Abyssinian one time and she was preaching, and she said, "This is the liberation mecca of Memphis." And I was like, oh, wow, okay, nice. And then Reverend Vahisha Hassan was there a couple of years ago. In February, I was preaching something. She's like, "This is the blackest sermon I ever heard. Like everything about this church is just black. It's just like this is just the blackest thing ever." Mm-hmm. I was like, "Oh, I guess we like the blackest church in Memphis and Shelby County," and it kind of just stuck that way. I appreciate it because it articulates our unyielding and unwavering and unapologetic commitment to social justice and black liberation from a congregational and theological and pastoral and ministerial and ecclesiastical context.
Don't you just love how he spits out all of these words? Okay, come on.
So the point is like I say this, and this would be a loving, healthy, and I would even say holy competition. I say ain't nobody gonna show up for black folks, speak up for black folks, stand up for black folks more than Abyssinian.
Gotcha.
I would love anybody to challenge us for that. That'd be a good, healthy competition.
And, you know, speaking of your passion for black folk, I've got to give reference to this book that's sitting here on our table here, the Reverend Albert Cleage Jr. And the Black Prophetic Tradition.
Yes.
A reintroduction of the Black Messiah. Come on, tell us about this.
So, Reverend Albert Cleage, Jeramogi Baby Ajaman, was the founder of the Shrine of the Black Madonna in Detroit.
Okay.
He was actually one of the foremost prophetic and ministerial and militant voices during the Civil Rights and Black Power movement.
Okay.
And so I stumbled upon this brother when I was studying for some classes that I was teaching at Rhodes College at the time. And long story less long, and I talk about it in the preface of the book, when I started to read up on him, I wondered why I'd never heard about him when I was in seminary. And I started to hear certain echoes of things that I had been saying at Abyssinian.
Wow.
I was like, well, he said this? Well, I said that at Abyssinian last week. And, you know, it was a breath of fresh air at a time when, as you talked about, you know, 10, 15 years ago, preachers were, you know, if I wore this, people would call me, you know, a Muslim.
Right.
And some of them still probably do. So what? And y'all getting y'all dashikis made in China or Italy, but that's another story. So at that time, always being called the radical and all this other stuff, you know, you start to internalize something like, am I tripping? You know, ain't nobody else really saying nothing, or this is not really big. And then you stumble up on a historical figure that you unearth. And so this is actually my dissertation from the PhD program at the University of Memphis. I had to revise it a little bit, of course.
Okay.
But that's what that is. So Albert Cleage is a black militant minister out of Detroit at the height of the Black Power and Civil Rights movement. He's actually the man who coined the term Black Liberation Theology.
Really?
James Cone, who most people associate with Black Liberation Theology, used to visit his church.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And sit there and take what Cleage's understudies called copious notes.
Copious notes.
But Cone even talked about this in his last book before he passed. I said I wasn't gonna tell nobody, but so that's what that's the name of Cone's book. Is I said I wasn't gonna tell nobody. And he starts talking about how influential Reverend Cleage was for him. So that's what that's about.
Can this be purchased on Amazon?
It can. I would rather you go through my Google site.
Through your Google site.
I'll make sure I put that in the chit chat.
We got it. Okay.
But yes, it can be purchased on Amazon. I think at last take it was like 6 or 7 of them left, so y'all better hurry up. And for those who have already ordered your books, please, I'm just waiting for the publisher to re-up. I guess they underestimated what Dr. Andre Johnson calls the reach of the Black church and the market of the Black church. Because they, you know, I'm waiting on the order I put in December.
Okay. I got to take a commercial break, and we're going to. It's so much I want to ask. I got so many cards I still have left. She
said we're gonna have to do a bonus segment. So we're gonna do a bonus segment. Y'all should see the way the folks in the studios look like. Bonus segment.
We'll be right back. All right, Chit Chatters, welcome back. We are wrapping this episode up, but I have to, before we say goodbye, I've got to ask you, Dr. Fisher, how do you balance pastoring, activism, writing, being a college professor, husband, father. How do you balance all of that? What's the self-care secret?
So, well, first you have to ask Denise.
Okay, okay.
And I will say too, Denise is so helpful.
Gotcha.
You know, that she helps keep my head on straight. A lot of times, she is a social worker, so a mental health professional by trade.
Okay.
And so our agreement when we got involved early on was that sometimes I'll take her to the altar, sometimes she's gonna take me to the couch.
I love it.
Yeah, and so I cannot underscore how much of an anchor she is. I try to maintain a regular exercise routine.
Okay.
I try to maintain a daily devotional life too.
Mm-hmm.
Having said all of that, as we were talking about before we even officially started the broadcast, I mean, I can't say that I am great at that level of balance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm committed. I try to take some necessary time for rest.
Okay.
I like naps.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I like my fair share of ice cream.
All right. So you're not always just, thinking about some radical movement, some radical...
I can't say that I'm not always thinking about it.
But you eat ice cream while you're doing it.
and watching some of my favorite shows or something like that.
What kind of shows do you watch?
Two of my favorite shows. Well, right now I'm into the whole Power series.
All right.
So Power is my thing. Ghost, Raising Canaan.
Okay.
That's my thing. The Blacklist is probably...
I love the Blacklist.
Yeah, I mean...
folks
Raymond
sleep
Reddington
on the Blacklist.
Hey.
Folks asleep on the Blacklist.
Yeah.
And it's been on for so long.
Yeah. So those are probably the main ones outside of things that I watch or read or listen to for consciousness raising. But those are more just like entertaining things. I'm a guy who loves hip hop music.
Okay.
So I listen to a lot of that. Denise and I take regular dates, middle of the week,
weekend.
Good. I try to spend ample time with my crazy 21-year-old son.
Oh wow.
Jalen.
Do you think he's gonna be an activist?
I don't know. And part of the reason I say that, number one, I don't want to try to put that type of pressure. Sometimes parents impose themselves on their children. The second thing is, and I think my mother Claudia, my sister Tierney, my family members, even some of my classmates from the morning would say, who I am now is not who they had envisioned. It's not who I had envisioned. Like I didn't come from Memphis. I didn't come to Memphis for this. I had other things in mind, right? So you just never know. I mean, I would support him in whatever. He's really into like fashion and shoes and stuff like that. And he's playing basketball in the morning right now. So I just want to support him as much as possible and guide him through some of that stuff.
All right. Well, even though you didn't come to Memphis for this, we're glad that you did. You are definitely a voice for the voiceless. Mm. And for those of us who have a voice, you're giving us a different way to use our voice, and I have a great appreciation for that.
The feeling is mutual. I appreciate you.
So y'all know I'm always out of time, but I'm never out of conversation. But what I'm gonna do, because y'all know he's a typical pastor. He came in kind of running my my studio here, and he mentioned that we need to have a additional segment. Just a typical pastor. So what we're going to do is we are going to go over to YouTube and put out a few pieces because there were some more questions, and I just wanted to ask. And
I got more stuff to learn from Reverend.
So listen, tune in each Sunday evening at 7 p.m. here on your social media outlet. But this is Conversations with Linda. Y'all know I love you.